Hello, and thanks for joining. Today we're going to be really focused on the topic of how we can extend the protections that we get from the next generation firewall to users even when they're not inside the building. And what we're really talking about here is that people are starting to understand why a next generation firewall is so important. You can build your policies on applications, users, and content. You see all of the traffic regardless of port. You have all of that ability to control traffic, actually see what's going on, and then apply a bunch of your threat prevention intelligence there. Now, the issue is that enterprises are starting to expand quite a bit. Plus, just computing models themselves are changing. So end users are using lots of new devices. They want to be able to work from anywhere, whether that's the coffee shop or from home or any place that may be outside the traditional perimeter. And when these users do leave that perimeter, they start to get a very different standard of security than what they get when they're inside the network. You get kind of a best effort approach that says, well, if I can at least get that user to use a VPN, that'll be some protection. Or if I can use a web-based proxy out there to kind of proxy some of my traffic, that's better than just relying on that endpoint security on the laptop itself. The big problem here is that none of these options do what the next generation firewall does. It doesn't give you that ability to control applications, see if there's other applications tunneling within an HTTP session, see if there's someone using evasive traffic, see if there's a drive-by download, see if all of those things that can happen when someone is outside the network. So the real thing that we need to do is be able to not settle for a lower level of security and also have a kind of second parallel security policy, but how we can really expand our notion of what the perimeter is to a perimeter not really based on the physical constraints of a building, but a logical perimeter that follows an end user regardless of where they go, so that we get consistent protection, we get that same level of quality, we get that same level of visibility. And this is really the idea behind Global Protect. Global Protect uses a small agent on each of the laptops. It intelligently finds the closest Palo Alto Networks gateway for connecting through and routing traffic. So this allows us to make sure that our policies, the same policies that we use when we're inside the perimeter, can actually follow us when we go outside the building. And that's something that's really, really key. It's really, really unique to be able to say, even when I'm at the coffee shop, and I'm probably the most exposed to getting a drive-by download or any of these other types of behaviors, that we can bring our best level of inspection and security with us to make sure that that user stays safe. Also, when we start looking at that end user's machine, we can add things to our policies that we've never had before, such as, in addition to looking at application, user, and content, we can also start to build information on the profile of that end user, such as is the operating system patched and up to date? Is he using disk encryption if that's our policy? Is the AV up to date? And now we can integrate that into our policies just like we do with all of the other policies based on application, user, and content. So probably at this point the best thing to do is actually show it, because certainly a picture is often worth 1,000 words when you're talking about a policy. So where we are right now, this is the application command center of the Palo Alto Networks user interface. This is where we see applications, where any of our URL filtering rules have been triggered, any of the threat prevention rules, and data filtering, all of those types of things. These are the types of protections and visibility that you get from the true next generation firewall. Now, what I'm going to do is hop over to the policy screen. This is where a lot of the power kind of comes into play. The policy screen allows us to, in a single line, do a lot of very powerful things based on application, user, and content. Okay, so here, now that we're in the policy screen, we can take a look at an individual rule, and you can see really easily that this has the rule is based on both zones, end users, the applications that are in use, and then has a lot of security profiles, such as your ability to have antivirus profiles, anti-spyware, looking for vulnerability exploits, and on and on. Now, what's new is that we can click on this HIP profile, and this is the profile based on the host information. That's where the HIP acronym comes from. And what we can do is create a new HIP object. And this is where we can set all of our rules based on an end user's machine. Things like patch management. We can look at the end user's host-based firewall. Is it enabled? What vendors do we want to use? Things like that. I'll show you an example of the antivirus profile, so we can make sure that yes, AV is installed, it has real-time protection, what version we want to be using. We also have the ability to add multiple new vendors, and we can list all of the various vendors that you might have as your local AV client. So if you do have an enterprise, and this is very common, where you have lots of different endpoint agents out there, you can support all of those settings for each one of those vendors, so that with this single HIP profile or HIP object, you can support all of those various users and clients. You can set rules for disk backup. When was the last time it was backed up? What is the disk encryption? And all of those types of things. Now, with that set, the great thing is you can tie that HIP profile to their application rules, or what zones they can get to, and what types of security protections they need from the threat prevention module. So all of this allows us to really bring a really concise notion of mobility to our policies and protect people consistently no matter where they go. And that'll wrap up this quick video into Global Protect, and look forward to talking with you again in future videos. Thanks a lot.